Hi everybody, welcome to another Lost Lake Fly Club tutorial. Tonight we're going to be tying the Grafham killer shrimp. So I'm going to, without ado, I'm just going to get on and tie it. So here we got some red Spyder, Semperfli Spyder thread. I'm using red because it gives a nice little hot spot. So I'm just going to tie in my thread and take it all the way down the body. About halfway around the bend is perfect. You don't want to go too far, because you don't want to interfere with any hookups. I'm tying this on a fulling mill Czech Nymph hook here, the 5650. It's a particular favourite of mine, as you probably have gathered. Really versatile, allows me to tie up lots of different patterns on it. So I'm going to bring it all the way down about halfway around the bend, and then I'm going to take my thread all the way back up to the eye. I'm going to stop about 2 to 3 mils away from the eye. I'm going to take off my tag end of the thread. Now, this particular shrimp, the killer shrimp, has got some really long feeders at the front. So I'm going to take a partridge feather that I pre-prepared. There it is. And I'm going to take about 20 or so barbules, and I'm going to pull them out. And I'm just going to make sure they're all level, or as level as I can. And I'm just going to strip them off. And then using the natural curve of the feather, I'll just get rid of a couple there that are just not where I want them to be. Just the natural curve of the feather. I'm going to tie these in to the front, leaving them quite long because it's a natural look for the pattern. And we're looking for those triggers for the fish. And then I'm going to come in and I'm just going to take off and snip off the waist ends here. And then I'm going to repeat this process all the way back down the other end. I'm going to take my thread down. Here we go. All the way back down. Now I'm going to use this as an opportunity to reposition my hook. Just makes it easier, to be fair. And at this point, I'm coming in with my partridge again. And I'm using the other side of the feather now. The barbule's on the other side, so I can get an even number. And I'm just going to give them a little pull. And again, going to use the natural curve of them and tie them at the end. Now I don't want these as long, okay, because they are that much shorter than the front. So I'm just going to place it on the side. I'm going to use the natural pull of the thread just to pull them onto the top and just tie them down. A couple of lock-in wraps. I'm going to come in with a 45-degree angle here. I'm just going to trim off like so. And then I'm going to tidy up. Now, at this point, we need to tie in a shell back. Now, I'm going to use some foam. So we've got a piece of tan foam that you can buy in a craft shop that I've cut with some foam Hopper Caddis foam body cutters that I got. That just give me the perfect profile for this, and it's about 3 to 4 mils wide. And I'm going to take one end, and I'm just going to make a little V shape, cut a little V shape. There we go. And then I'm going to place it at the top onto my shank, just a little bit longer, so the point just pushes down towards the partridge. I'm just going to hold it in my fingers, and then I'm going to make a little pinch wrap and just tension down, put a second locking wrap in, and then just check for my position. Yep, that's pretty good. So I'm going to put a couple of locking wraps in, because the foam does have a tendency to slip. Just put a couple in front of it and it's all good. Now, I'm going to reposition my hook again, and I'm going to bring my tie-in thread about halfway up the body. And I'm now going to make a 15 centimeter thread loop, as if you were making a dubbing loop. So I'm just going to put it across the top, and I'm just going to tie that in. Now this is going to form one of 2 ribs. More on that in a bit. So I'm just going to put that in my material clip, and I'm going to get that out of the way. And then I'm going to come in with my next rib, which is a piece of coral Flexi floss. You can use any colour you like for this. I just had coral in my head when I was looking for materials. And I'm just going to tie this in on the top. I'm going to hold it taut so it lessens the profile. And then I'm just going to tie it down all the way back down to the foam at the base. and then come back up and be ready to remove the waist end like so. And I'm just going to tidy up that little step there, because it's just something in me. I like to have a tidy underbody on my flies. It just makes me feel confident in them. I'm going to take my tie-in thread all the way back down to the foam. Oh, just get that out of the way, and back into my tying clip. And I'm going to dub on a body here. Now I've got a dubbing blend that I've made up. This is a Vicuna dubbing blend from Vicuna Dubbing. So it's 2/3 hare's ear sub to 1/3 tup sub. You can pick these up on our website. And I'm going to, it's been run through a coffee grinder just to make it that little bit finer. And I'm going to dub on a rope. And it's better to dub on a little bit at a time rather than put loads on, because you can always add as you go along. It's much harder to take away once you look at it and go, oh, I've put too much on there. And I'm not waxing the thread because it allows me just to move it to where I want it to be. Now I want this body to be quite chunky, so I'm not too bothered about tightening it all as I'm going along. So I'm just, there you go, over dubbing as well. It's not a problem. And I want to taper it, so I want it to be thicker in the middle than at either end. Not significantly, but enough, just to give that shrimpy type profile. So as I come back through, put some more in, you can see I'm building up the body. And keep adding it in until you've got the profile that you want. You can make them as thick or as slim as you like. You don't have to use dubbing. You could use, I suppose you could use ostrich hill for a nice leggy approach. So, you know, trial and error. You could try lots and lots of different things. So I'm just going to push it down. That's it. And you can see I'm over dubbing here, just pulling back. Still got a little bit to go. So just a tiny little bit of dubbing. I'm going to leave again about 2 to 3 mils towards the eye of the hook, because I want to be able to tie in all the other materials without overcrowding that eye. There we go. Now you can see I've got all these fluffy bits sticking up, so I'm just going to give them a rub with my finger and just push them down. I want those to be on the sides. And now I'm going to take my foam back and I'm just going to place it across the back. Make sure I'm happy that it hasn't slipped. And then I'm just going to give it a little pull, hold it in place, and then with a pinch wrap, I'm just going to tighten down to hold it in place. There we go. And I'm going to put a locking turn in. And then I'm just going to check that I've positioned it where I want it to be. It looks pretty good. There we go. Now I'm going to put a couple more, 1, 2, 3, a couple more thread wraps in. Now I'm going to come in and take off most of this foam at the front. Not all of it. I'm going to leave it longer than the back because I'm going to trim that down later on. So a couple more turns just for peace of mind. And I'm going to put 1, 2, just there as well. Now this is where we start to rib it. And I'm going to use my thread rib first of all. Now the reason we've got a thread rib, we're going to double rib, is because this allows us to make a good segmented effect. The Flexi floss is too supple. I find it doesn't bite into the foam particularly well. So I'm just going to bring it round in the opposite way to the way in which I wind my thread. And I'm going to start to form, my little segments. And I'm going to make small segments towards the back. And you'll notice that I'm positioning across the top. I'm not pulling down until I come into the horizontal plane. That stops the foam from spinning on the hook if it's loose. And as I move towards the front, I'm just going to make those segments, just position. Just going to make those segments a little bit wider, a little bit bigger. There we go. And when I get to the front here, 1 lock-in wrap, 2 lock-in wraps, and we can remove our waist end of thread. There we go. So we're looking quite segmenty there. if that's even a word. It's very well segmented, looking more shrimpy as every second goes on. So now for the second rib. Now Flexi Floss is great because you can stretch it, you can change the width and the profile by stretching it. It even changes the color. It gets lighter as you stretch it, darker when you leave it in its normal plane. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to not stretch it too much. I'm just going to follow exactly the same ribbing pattern as we did with the tie-in thread. So we're covering it effectively with the Flexi Floss. I've got a bit of dubbing caught in it there. So if you find that, just come in with your scissors, just give it a little trim, little haircut. There we go. And I'm just going to continue and follow the segments until we get to the front again. And then I got 1, 2, 1, 2. Now it's really important to make sure that you've locked the Flexi Floss in. It has a tendency to ping back and unravel, so I'm just going to clip that. There we go, and we're almost done on the main tie. So there we have it. So we've got our segmented back, we've got our foam front here. It's not quite looking as it should yet. I'm just going to give it a little haircut down the sides just to trim off these bits sticking out. Look a bit unsightly. I'm going to come in and do exactly the same on this side as well. Okay, now at this point I'm going to just whip finish, put a couple of whip finishes in. And you could just leave it like this, I suppose, but the whole point of this fly is to mimic as much of the original as we can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in now, and I'm just going to, on this top section here, I'm going to cut and shape the sides. So down one side, come down the other side, and then I'm going to come in at an angle, 45 degrees. And then I'm just going to trim it off, just get it how I want it to be, to make the head of the shrimp. And then I'm going to come in at the back, and I'm just going to square off this point. There we go. It's looking far more shrimpy now. So you can see we've got a far better shrimpy pattern. Then dubbing brush, I'm just going to come in underneath. I'm going to tease out gently the dubbing to form the legs, and I'm going to give it a pull. You can have as much or as little as you like. Give it a pull. There we go. And then I'm going to spin it upside down. Spin the fly upside down, and then I'm going to come in, and from the eye to the hook point, I'm going to trim off all these longer points here to make my leg profile. You can see that we've got a really nice looking leg profile there on our fly. Now, to finish off, got my brown Sharpie, because this this shrimp has actually got some dark barring along its sides and back. So I'm just going to come in, and I'm just going to very gently, don't be heavy-handed with this, very gently just put some spots of barring down the sides on the foam, just with the tip of my pen. Don't want to go overboard, and then just some tiny little dots on the back and on the front to give it its barring segmentation. And then what I do then is I just give them a rub, so it sort of blends rather than leaving it sort of like somebody just coloured it in. So I give it a bit of a blend with my finger like so. And then to finish it off, a bit of old school Cellire varnish, just on a tip of a needle, and I just put it just across the head here. And what I find with the red thread is it gives another trigger point at the front of the fly. Now I'm really eager to make these in slightly bigger sizes as well this summer for mullet, so I'll give those a go too. I reckon they could be pretty devastating. But I hope you've enjoyed that tie. Check out the step-by-step as well, and let me see what they look like. Give them a go. Hope you catch some fish. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.